walked into that room, one person, and walked out someone the world didn't recognize. Every label, every name they gave me got buried the moment I opened my eyes. Nicodemus asked, how can a man be born when he is already old and set in stone? Jesus said the wind blows where it wants to, and new life starts with letting go of what you've known. This isn't self-improvement, this isn't trying harder. This is death and resurrection happening inside you, replacing everything you were with everything he said you could. Born again, I don't look like what I've been. Born again, stepped out of my own skin. Born again, the old me couldn't survive this. Born again, and I've never felt so alive as this. The grave clothes came off when Lazarus walked out. Jesus said, unbind him, let him go. Born again means nothing from the old life gets to follow into the new thing only God could know. New eyes, new heart, new name, new start. Not restored, not repaired, not patched up and sent back. Born again, completely new from front to back. Born again, I don't look like what I've been. Born again, and I've never felt so alive as this. There are two voices in every room I walk into. One tells me everything that could go wrong. The other one is quieter, but it's older, and it's been right about me all along. I spent too many years turning up the doubt, giving it the microphone inside my head. But every lie I amplified got louder, while every promise went unheard instead. Faith was getting the volume from now on. Every time the fear starts talking over everything, I turn it up until the fear is gone. Louder than the lie, louder than the fear, louder than the voice that said God isn't here. Faith gets the microphone. than louder than the lie, louder than the fear. Oh, everything I thought was permanent turned out to be flammable. Every version of myself I built went up like it was paper thin and manageable. Elijah heard God after the earthquake, after the wind, after the fire died down. Not in the spectacle, not in the disaster, but in the still small voice without a sound. What the fire couldn't touch was always the real thing. What survived the heat was always meant to stay. Everything that burned was just the scaffolding around the person God was building anyway. Still standing after the fire, still whole after the flame. Everything it couldn't burn was always mine to claim. Gold doesn't apologize for the furnace. It comes out the other side and simply shines. The fire never had the final word on me. That belonged to the one who drew the lines. I don't mourn what burned, I celebrate what stayed. I don't miss the old version that the fire took away. After the fire comes the clearest kind of morning. After the fire comes the life I should have had. Still standing after the fire, still whole after the flame. Everything it couldn't burn was always mine to claim. I came with nothing, dressed up or something. Before my way through every open door, but underneath the version everyone was seeing was a person running on empty to the core. There is a kind of tired that sleep doesn't fix, a kind of hungry that food never fills, a hollow feeling right behind the sternum that the world keeps selling cures for but never heals. I stopped pretending I had it together, stopped showing up with fences I didn't have, walked in empty-handed and finally honest, and found that empty was exactly where you were best. Hollow, enough for grace to move in, empty enough for something real to begin. Nothing left to offer, nothing left to fake. Hollow, and that's exactly what it took. The jar that held the most was the one with room, the vessel God kept filling never came full first. Hollow isn't failure, hollow is the posture that finally puts an end to all the thirst. Through what's empty, mend what's broken, bring life to what was barely spoken. I came hollow, I leave whole. That's what happens when God fills a soul. Enough for grace to move in, empty enough for something real to begin. And that's exactly what it took. Not my will, but yours. Not my path, but yours. He could have called 10,000 angels, could have walked away from everything that night. Instead he pressed his face into the garden soil and prayed the hardest prayer in human light. 3 times he asked if there was another way. 3 times the answer came back as a cross. And every time he rose up from that ground, he chose the will of the Father over the cost. I have had my Gethsemane moments, flat on my face with nowhere else to go, begging for a different path, a different answer. And people slept while Jesus bled tears. Too tired to stay awake for what was coming. But he didn't need them to be strong that night. He just needed to finish what he was becoming. Whatever cup is in my hands right now, whatever I've been begging to be taken, I lay it down the way he laid it down. Surrendered but not broken, not forsaken. Not my will, but yours. Not my path, but yours. In my Gethsemane, not my will, but yours. I spent my whole life gripping every edge, calculating every risk before I'd move. But the tighter that I held on to my safety, the more I missed the things I was supposed to do. There is a moment on every roller coaster where the track disappears from underneath, and the only thing between you and the bottom is the thing that was holding you the whole time beneath. Control was never mine to keep or carry. The illusion cost me more than I can say. Every time I thought I had it all together was just before it all fell away. Free fall! Hands off the wheel. Free fall! This is what trust feels like when you stop pretending you're in charge. Free fall! And he was always holding you this far. Peter walked on water till he grabbed for something solid. The moment he reached out, the sinking came. The water held him fine when he was looking forward. It only failed him when he tried to tame. I let go and nothing broke. I let go and finally walked to a God who had me the whole way down. Free fall. than every word I said. But here I am again, back at the same crossroad I thought I'd left for dead. The shame hits harder the second time around, because you know better and you did it anyway. And the voice that says you used up all your chances gets louder every time you kneel to pray. But grace was never designed for the first fall only. It was built for the 10th and the 100th too. The cross didn't have a limit printed on it, and mercy doesn't keep a tab on you. Get up! That's all he said. Get up! You're not done yet. The fall was never the end of the story. Get up! Let me show you what I meant. Peter denied him 3 times before the rooster, and Jesus met him on a beach and asked, "Do you love me?" Not to shame him, but to restore him. 3 denials undone by 3 chances to agree. I am not my worst moment. I am not my longest losing streak. I am not the sum of every relapse. I am who he says I am, and he says I'm redeemed. Every time I fall, he's already kneeling right there beside me in the dirt. Saying, "Get up, we're not finished." Get up, I know it hurts. Get up. That's all he said. Get up. You're not done yet. Get up. There are nights when faith doesn't feel like faith. It feels like talking to a ceiling and a wall. When the prayers bounce back and the silence answers, and you start to wonder if he hears you at all. The mist is caught at the dark night of the soul. Not a crisis of belief, but a crisis of feeling. When everything you built your life upon stops feeling real and starts needing healing. But feeling and truth were never the same thing. The sun doesn't stop existing in a storm, and God doesn't move further when it gets dark. He moves closer. That's always been the norm. The darkest night always breaks into morning. The longest silence always breaks into song. The dark night of the soul is not real places. My God, why have you forsaken me? And yet those words became the sacred scripture that carried every broken soul toward being free. I will praise him in the dark night. I will trust him in the silence. I will hold on through the absence of every feeling I relied on. The dark night is not forever. Morning always has the final say. The darkest night always breaks into morning. The longest silence always breaks into sound. The dark night of the soul is not the ending. It's where the deepest roots are finally found. I know what's coming against me. I've seen the face of the enemy, but I've also seen what's standing behind me, and there's no comparison. He comes to steal and kill and destroy. That's the only play he's ever known. But every attack he's ever launched at me is just push me closer to the throne. I am not retreating. I am not backing down. The blood of Jesus on my lips is the most dangerous sound. War cry, shaking every principality. War cry, this is my reality. War cry, heaven's army at my back. War cry, and I will never turn back. David didn't wait for Goliath. He ran straight toward the giant's face. What looked like a desperate situation was just God setting up his grave. So I pick up every stone of promise, every word he's ever spoken over me, and I launch it at the light that said I'm finished. Watch it fall, watch it fall, watch it fall. War cry. The victory was already won. War cry. Finished by the risen sun. War cry. Fight from victory, not for it. War cry. Every demon knows it. This is not my battle, but I'm showing up anyway. Armed with faith and fire, nothing left to say. ultrasound before the date, before a single cell divided into something. God already had a mark beside my fate. Jeremiah heard it first, but it belongs to all of us. Known before the womb formed who you'd be. Every person reading this was not an accident. You were engineered with terrifying specificity. The enemy knows what you were marked for. That's why the attack came early and came hard. Everything that tried to take you out in childhood was threatened by the calling on your heart. Marked before the world knew your name. Marked, and that mark will never be erased. The mark of God is not a guarantee of easy. It's a target and a treasure all at once. Everything you carry that feels like a burden is the weight of what you were specifically meant to become. You were marked for this, you were made for this. Every scar, every story, every broken piece of this was always leading somewhere you couldn't see from there. Marked by God before you breathed your first breath of air. Marked before the world knew your name. Marked, and that mark will never be erased. Supposed to do, I just didn't want to do it. The direction was clear, the calling was obvious, and I walked the other way and blew it. Bought a ticket going the wrong direction. Thought the ocean would put distance between me and the car. But you can't outrun what's woven into your purpose, and the storm found me before I made it anywhere at all. 3 days in the belly of the consequence of every choice I made to run instead, and in the dark I finally had the conversation I should have had before I fled. There is no ship fast enough. There is no sea wide enough. There is no darkness deep enough to put distance took everything that was given to me and spent it on a life that wasn't mine. Woke up in a place I never planned to be, feeding pigs and running out of time. The speech I rehearsed on the long walk home died in my throat before I said a word, because he was already running down the road toward me before my first apology was heard. That's the part that breaks me every time I read it. He saw me from a distance and he read, didn't wait for the explanation or the groveling, just covered me before I could begin. Still a long way off, and he was already running. That's the kind of love there is no outrunning. No rehearsed speech needed, no art in your way back, just a father at full speed and arms that never lack. The robe, the ring, the sandals, and the party were never things I thought I'd see again. But grace has never been about deserving. It's about a love that meets you where you've been. I came back with nothing. He gave me everything. I came back ashamed. He gave me a ring. I came back expecting judgment. He threw a party instead. Prodigal and pardon, welcomed home and fed. Still a long way off, and he was already running. That's the kind of love there is no outrunning. Elijah thought he was the only one left, collapsed under a tree and said enough. But God told him there were 7,000 others who never bent their knee when things got tough. There's always been a remnant in every generation, a handful who refused to follow the crowd, who kept the fire burning in the quiet seasons when faith wasn't popular or proud. You may feel like the last one standing, like everyone around you has walked away, but there are people you have never met who are on their knees for the same God today. We are the so far from the place I started. Didn't even notice till the silence hit. Every familiar thing I used to lean on had been replaced by something counterfeit. The Israelites sat by the rivers of Babylon and wept because they couldn't sing their songs. How do you worship in a foreign country when everything that felt like home is gone? But exile was never the end of the story. Every captivity has a coming home. And what felt like the furthest I had ever been turned out to be the closest I had known. Thought I was in exile. Turns out he followed me there. I thought I was abandoned. Turns out he never left the exile, and he was already in it, waiting for me to look up and see that the furthest place I ever ran to was still inside his reach. Daniel worshipped in Babylon 3 times daily. Never let the exile change his face toward God. And what the enemy meant to be his undoing became the platform God used to show his power abroad. You are not too far. You are not too gone. You are not too lost for him to find and bring along the exilence. The moment that you turn, he's already running. That's the thing you need to Thought I was in exile. Turns out he followed me there. Exile, and he was already in it, waiting for me to look up. Nobody told me following would cost this much. Nobody mentioned what would have to die. Every comfortable version of a half-committed life got exposed the moment I went all in on why. The disciples left everything mid-sentence. Nets still in the water, boats still at the shore. No negotiation, no 2 weeks notice. Just everything abandoned at the door. There is a version of this faith that costs you nothing. Sunday morning, comfortable and clean. And then there is the kind that bleeds and burns and builds something the comfortable I've never seen. More people, more noise, more familiar ground. But something about the crowd made me suspicious of how many of them actually knew where they were bound. Jesus said the gate is narrow, and few there are that find it and go through. Not because God is stingy with the entrance, but because most people never want the truth. The narrow road costs you the applause of everyone who chose the other way. It costs you comfort, popularity, and safety, and gives you something none of them can say. Few find it, few will stay on it, but those who do never go back. The narrow road takes everything you brought with you and gives you back what you could never have on the wide track. Enoch walked with God and then was not, because the narrow road eventually leads home. Not to a destination, but a person, and nobody who finds him walks alone. I chose the narrow road, not because it's easy, not because the cost was small, not because I'm better than the ones who didn't. I chose it because I heard his call, and once you hear it, nothing else makes sense. The narrow road is worth every consequence. Few find it, few will stay on it, but those who do never go back. No battering ram, no siege, no strategy, just the instruction that made no military sense. March around the walls and blow your trumpets and watch what happens when obedience is your defense. 6 days they walked in silence round the city, every soldier, every priest, every man. The enemy on the walls above them laughing at what looked like the strangest battle plan. But God has never needed conventional wisdom. He has never needed what makes sense to man. The most powerful weapon in the arsenal has always been the one who simply trusts the plan. circling inside. silence. What promise have you been marching toward by faith? The same God who flattened Jericho is listening, and your seventh lap might be today. Keep marching, keep believing, keep your eyes on what He said. The walls don't fall because you're strong enough. They fall because He's God instead. Keep marching. Your Jericho is next. Not by might, not by power, not by strategy, but by the sound of a people standing their ground. Keep marching. Your Jericho is coming down. Yeah, I am never lost. Not once in 40 days of calling out. Every army, every champion, every nation has backed down without a doubt. But something is different about this one. He's not stopping, he's not slowing at the sight of me. No armor, no sword, just a bag of stones and eyes that look like they can actually see. I have faced 1,000 soldiers trained for war, but I have never faced a man who fights like this. Like the outcome was already decided before he even reached into that bag of it. He's running toward me. Nobody runs toward me. He's running toward me with nothing place it could've landed, and the last thing I saw was the ground rushing up. Every giant has a forehead and a shepherd, and a God who always shows up. Whatever giant you're facing today, remember it already saw David coming, and it already knew that it was going to lose. Every Goliath falls when God chooses who holds the stone. He's running toward me with nothing but faith and a stone. Today Goliath falls. Today Goliath falls alone. Yeah, there comes a moment in every story, where the middle ground runs out completely, where you either plant your flag or walk away, and everything you say you believed is tested deeply. I have reached that moment more than once, standing at the edge of what I said I'd die for, and found out that conviction without cost is just a speech you practice but don't live for. This is not the place for half measures. This is not the moment for a careful, calculated move. Everything is on the table, everything is riding on whether what I carry is the real thing or a ruse. No retreat, no surrender to the fear, no backing down from everything that brought me to right here. Last stand, and I'm not standing alone. Last stand, on the rock that he has shown. Everything I am against everything that comes. Last stand, and the battle's already won. Elijah stood on Carmel against 451 man, one altar, one prayer, one God, and fire fell from heaven on a soaking wet offering, because last stands were never really all that hard when the one who stands beside you is the Lord. I will not move, I will not bend, I will not bow, I will not end. This is my last stand, and I was made for this moment. And I against whatever comes. No retreat, no surrender to the fear. Last stand, and I'm not standing alone. The battle's already won. I held on to what was hurting me, like familiar pain was better than the unknown. But God has never been afraid to break what I was too attached to let go on my own. The potter doesn't apologize to the clay when the vessel isn't forming like it should. He presses down and starts the whole thing over, not out of frustration, but because he knew it could. What feels like destruction from the inside looks completely different from above. The hands that break are the same hands that build, and both of them are moved by the same love. Shatter, let it fall apart. Shatter, this is where it starts. Everything that breaks in his hands gets rebuilt into something greater than the plans I had for myself. Shatter, and watch what he does next. The alabaster box had to break completely before the fragrance filled the entire room. What was sealed inside was always just needed to be broken to bloom. I stopped mourning what he broke in me, started watching what he built instead. Every shattered version of my old life was just making room for what's ahead. Shatter, let it fall apart. Shatter, this is where it starts. Everything that breaks in his hands gets rebuilt into something greater. There is a list of things I wrote off is gone. Years I called wasted, seasons I called lost. Relationships and dreams and parts of my identity that I assumed were just the unavoidable cost. But Joel didn't say I'll come for you for what the locusts ate. He said I will restore the years, every single one of them paid back with interest. That's not compensation, that's a God who interferes. The enemy celebrated too early, threw a party over what he thought was done, but he forgot who owned the thing he stole. And you don't keep what belongs to the sun. Everything he took volunteers for the wilderness. Nobody signs up for the silence and the sand, but every person God ever used significantly spent time in a place they didn't understand. Moses tended sheep for 40 years in Midian, before a burning bush changed everything he knew. The wilderness wasn't wasted time, it was preparation for the man he'd need to be before he let them through. To the wilderness on purpose, 40 days before the ministry began. The enemy showed up with every trick he carries, and lost to a hungry, tired, fully human man. I stopped fighting where he put me, started looking for what he was doing. Every uncomfortable season has a lesson worth pursuing. The wilderness is not my grave, it's just where I was being made. In the wilderness he fed me. In the wilderness he led me. Every dry and barren season was the making of a reason to trust him in the wilderness. Backs torn open, chains around their wrists, thrown into the deepest cell they had. No lawyer, no appeal, no way out visible, and every reason in the world to lose their minds. But somewhere around midnight, something shifted. Not the chains, not the cell, not the guards. Two men decided that the darkness wasn't louder than the God who put the music in their hearts. Praise is not the response to answered prayer. Praise is the weapon you pull out when nothing's changed, when the situation looks identical to hopeless, and worship is the most unreasonable thing. Midnight and they're singing anyway. Chains on and they're worshiping anyway. Everyone quotes that song from the other side. After the valley, after the breakthrough came. But I'm writing this from inside the shadow, and it doesn't feel like a poem, it feels like pain. The valley of the shadow is a metaphor. When you're the one who's walking through the dark, every step feels like the ground could disappear, and the only light you have is a flicker in your heart. But the song doesn't say he takes you around it. It says he walks you through it, rod and staff in hand. The presence in the valley is the whole point. You'd never know he was that close without the sand. Even here, he is with me. Even here, the table set. Even here in the shadow, he hasn't left me yet. Goodness and mercy aren't just waiting at the exit. They've been following me every step inside. The valley wasn't empty of his presence. It was just too dark for me to see him by my side. I will fear no evil, not because it isn't real, but because the shepherd's closer than anything I feel. The valley doesn't last forever, but what I learned in here is worth every single step, through every single fear. Even here, he is with me. Even here, the table set. Even in the valley, he hasn't left me yet. I know what fear tastes like. I've swallowed it whole more times than I can count. It sits in your chest like a stone you can't move, and grows every time you give it more ground. But fearless was never the absence of the feeling. It was Joshua standing at the Jordan anyway. It was Esther walking into the king's court uninvited. It was every saint who moved me